Om Shanti. So, welcome all of you. And as always, before we begin, we'll spend a minute in silence and invoke the presence of the Supreme Being. Okay, so welcome all of you to the Values for Life series, episode number 78 on safety. And we are so fortunate to have with us our very dear Sister Maureen Goodman joining all the way from the Global Cooperation House. Thank you so much for joining and giving us your time. And,
thank you for having me very much. Sorry, just...
No problem. And I have a little bit of time today, so I would want to elaborately introduce her, though she doesn't need introduction. She knows, all of us her know very well. I would always say that the first thing, I know her fondly as an author of the Vihasa book, The Values in Healthcare, a Spiritual Approach, the training program which we conduct for doctors and nurses. We really use that program a lot, and we are very fortunate to have that book with us because it has so many experiential exercises, which is a unique way of serving people, the medical professions particularly. So now let me come to her history. She has been a student and teacher of Raj Yoga for more than 40 years. And she is the program director for the Brahma Kumaris UK. And also she is the representative of the BKs at the United Nations. And she has conducted a lot of projects for the United Nations International Year for the Culture of Peace. And I must say that she is involved in interreligious dialogues nationally and internationally, again, for more than 40 years, and has served on several committees, including the World Congress of Faiths as well. Also, she's on the executive circle of the Spirit of Humanity Forum. And with this, I would like to say that she also currently convenes the group of leaders in dialogue on love in leadership and governance. That's interesting to know that in leadership and governance, how love can be incorporated. And as always, she has covered many talks for us, like she's done bliss with us and also on joy. And today we are asking her to speak something on safety. So before that, as always, I'll take a few more minutes and recite the poem for her. So today, Sister Maureen shall throw light on how to practice safety so that we can adopt a lifestyle which is spiritually hefty, not physically. In this world where we are surrounded by a lot of frailty, excuse me, sorry, her spiritual wisdom offers health benefits like having green tea, spiritual green tea.
I like green tea, it's good.
Spirituality gives us the strength to stand like a mighty tree, flying in the open blue skies, feeling absolutely free. In this world where everyone has fallen away from their celestial degree and is in a mad, bad competition, chasing life on a materialistic spree, where people on every small issue are ready to disagree, Sister Maureen shall give us a true solution with full guarantee. 100% success and victory assured without charging any fee, remember. And she shall guide us on the proper method by which oneself to see. So let's celebrate in her presence the spiritual jubilee with the Supreme's virtues and powers as if sitting along the spiritual sea. So with this, the sea is SEA. Okay, so let's now ask Sister Claudia. Thank you so much, and ask Sister Claudia to please welcome her with flowers. Either you or Sister Anu, whoever is around. I think she's there, yeah. If you can just spotlight her.
Oh, okay. Hello, Claudia. Hi.
We were in the silence retreat.
Oh,
We came from
sorry.
ORC back to Vancouver and then back to...
Oh, okay. Sorry to disturb you.
No, it wasn't just finished. So it was very nice because it was right on time. So, and then we can have your company. And actually, we really need you today because we need to, you have experience. I remember you went to Ukraine and you have experience in many different about safety. So I think we really need to hear from you more about how we can become prepare ourselves to be safe in this world where so many things happening at the same time. So I like to welcome you with some flowers for you, though, please.
Thank you. I accept them. Lovely. Beautiful.
In the name of everyone who is here today with you. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Sister Claudia. And before we begin, as always, a few housekeeping instructions. All of you know it very well. The interpretation icon, you can click it and listen to the language that you want to. And as always, the first 50 minutes, so on, will be the talk, followed by question and answers. So please feel free to send your questions to me in the chat box, not to everyone, so that the speaker is not disturbed. And after that, we'll have a closing meditation announcement. So over to Sister Moon. Thank you.
Thank you. And Om Shanti. Thank you for inviting me on this very powerful topic, actually, the topic of safety. And it is a very, very unsafe world today, as Sister Claudia mentioned. We see war going on. Ukraine, now the Middle East, and there are also 7 other civil wars that are raging. And definitely in times of war, people feel very, very unsafe. And I've been in touch quite a lot. One is with our BK brothers and sisters in Israel. We don't have a center in Palestine, but I have friends, family in Israel and so on. So they're feeling very unsafe, but yet they're hanging on to their faith, which is a great thing. But anyway, don't want to go too much into the detail of all of that, but it's a very unsafe world. And when I was thinking about safety, I was thinking, you know, where does safety lie? And it almost feels as if there's nowhere you can go physically where you can be totally safe. You can build up high walls around you. You can put, you know, electric fences or anything that you like to say physically, now I'm safe. I can lock my door. But even that doesn't guarantee anything. And I was reminded of a story, not a story, a true encounter. It was in Delhi in the 80s when there was quite a lot of violence happening in the Punjab. And I was with one Sikh gentleman. He was he still is actually the head of the Institute for Punjab Studies, and very much a man of peace, and very much someone who was speaking out for peace and for moderation at that time, even though, of course, there was a lot of extremism. And I went to meet him in Delhi, and he took me to the main Gurdwara, and it was a lovely experience. And then he said to me, he said, you know, because I'm speaking out for peace, I have been offered police protection, but I refused. So I asked him, I said, why did you refuse police protection? And he said, well, if I take police protection, where is my faith in God then? And that really touched me. And yes, I thought safety is not about the protection you have around you, but safety is definitely in our faith and in our awareness and our consciousness. And, you know, there's again a true story of that time when one of our centers was contacted, and the sister there was asked to go and meet some terrorists at a particular place. And apparently you don't refuse these invitations or there's very serious consequences. So she went to this place and she insisted on going alone, even though others wanted to go with her. She said, no, I'm going alone. She was fearless. She knew things would be all right, but yet going into danger. So she went to this clearing in the forest and she waited and waited. And then it became dusk. Still she waited. And then after a while, a couple of men came out and they asked her, what are you doing here? And she said, I'm waiting for my brothers. And that just touched them so much. And some more men came out and then they said, well, we had a thought of harming your centers, but because you said we're your brothers, we're not going to harm you. And on the contrary, if you need any protection, we will be there to protect you. That really is a true story. And it demonstrates how when there isn't fear and there's love, safety is possible. And we live in a world of fear. There's a total atmosphere of fear in the world. And where there's fear, it's impossible to be safe, because that atmosphere of fear sets up all sorts of reactions in people. If somebody faces you with anger, and I'm sure we've all been in this situation, and I have, and you know, you never know the extent of someone's anger. Is it just verbal? Can it become physical? Can it become violent? Yet, if somebody approaches you with anger, and I've experienced this, if you stay calm and you stay loving, their anger will abate, it will die down, and you'll be safe. It's so important. And, you know, you can say in wartime, how can it work? You know, when I was, Claudia mentioned about going to Ukraine, I was part of this project Faith in Ukraine, and a group of religious leaders, quite high level, I was with them. We went to Ukraine about 2 months after the war had started. And in fact, I was in India, in Mount Abu, and I left there just at the end of March. And I think maybe a week later, I went to Ukraine. And I didn't feel any fear, actually, at all. Actually, we weren't going to a place where there was actual fighting at that time. But even then, that wasn't really the reason. I just didn't feel any fear, because I knew I'm going for a good purpose, an elevated purpose, to be with the people there. And we didn't go to take sides. We didn't go to condemn anyone. We just went to be with the people. And people were very, very touched. And in fact, it was interesting. There was a moment where we actually flew to Romania and then crossed the border into Ukraine, about an hour and a half or something. And so we were there in a town called Chernivtsi. And all the theatres at that time were closed, but they agreed to open the theatre so that we could have an event to give messages of peace and hope. And when I gave my message, or I would say, it's not me, but being an instrument for God, then I asked, could we have a minute of silence for peace? And it was a very touching moment. I stood in silence, and then suddenly there was this noise, and the thought crossed my mind, has someone come on with a gun or what? But again, I wasn't scared. It was just like a logical thought. And then I realized what the noise was. The audience had stood up spontaneously, and this was the noise of all the theatre seats going up, going back. And it was just very moving. But because I knew that we were then really going to do God's work, what does God want for us? When I came back from Ukraine, I was asked the question, it was an interview with some channel. And one of the questions was, where is God in all this? How can God allow this to happen? And the same question's coming up now. And I said, yes, it's a good question, but my question would be, where is humanity in all this? What have we done to bring ourselves to this point where we kill each other like this? When people profit from war because of armaments, the arms trade is the most immoral thing. But yet, all governments, not all, but most. And the interviewer said, yes, I understand. And it's true, when we lose sight of our humanity, there's fear, and then ultimately there's violence. And actually, the very first violence that we do, the root of violence, is the first violence that we do to ourselves. And that violence is to suppress our own inner goodness. And when you look at today's world, the original goodness that every human being has on this earth mostly has become very suppressed or buried. It's as if the soul itself has become weak and can't emerge that goodness any longer. And then, of course, it creates a vacuum inside. And then there's fear. So I begin to rely on external identities, my position, my wealth, my possessions, maybe my nationality, maybe my ideology. They become my identity, and everybody else then is other. It causes division. And then, of course, if somebody threatens that, I feel threatened. I then become defensive, I become angry, and if you extrapolate it, it comes to war. The root of war is a lack of love for the self and a lack of love for others. We have this vacuum of love where there's no love inside. But rather, there's a lot of possessiveness, actually. So, yes, this is where we are at. And we can't say that this is God's doing. Fear destroys truth. Fear destroys compassion. Fear destroys love. Fear destroys tolerance. Fear destroys respect. It destroys many things. And it doesn't allow our inner goodness to work. And yet this is where there is safety. And, safety can come in different ways. And one is where we actually feel God's protection. And sometimes the protection is that we get the right inkling, the right intuition at the right moment, what to do and what to say to take ourselves out of danger. And again, this is a true story. It's a story from South Africa. And there was a sister going to the early morning meditation, which is, 4 o'clock. So 4 a.m. So she must have been walking on her own at 4:45 or something. And South Africa, I'm not sure which city it was, but it's not, excuse me, not the safest of places. But still, she was fearless. She was going for meditation. And a man started following her. And she kept on walking. He kept on following her. And then he caught up with her. And he said to her, "Aren't you scared?" And she looked at him and she said, "I would be if I was alive." Can you get it? And the man screamed and ran away. So he thought she was a ghost. But the right thing just came into her mind, and that was it. Lots of stories like that. But another story that happened here in the UK, one of our brothers was at a bus stop. He's a little elderly, and it was evening, and he was on his own at the bus stop. And two young guys came past, obviously not with very good intentions. And as they were going past, one said to the other, "We would have mugged him if he wasn't alone." He was alone. But because of his faith in God, his connection with God, somehow they saw two people or more at that bus stop. And I just love these stories because it just shows how practical faith is. But it has to be faith without any fear. And again, another story that's very much related to that time of Sikh extremism in the Punjab. And one of our daddies, our elder sisters, her name was Daddy Chandramani. And I'm sure many or some of you would have known her. Very jolly, very, very fearless. And we used to call her the lioness of the Punjab. She didn't fear anybody, anything. And I remember being in Mount Abu in our headquarters with her, and a group of us were with her. And somebody asked her, "Daddy, what would you do if somebody came towards you and pointed a gun at you?" And at first she didn't want to answer, but this person persisted. And, I thought maybe she'll say, "Well, I'll go to God, I'll, remember God, or I'll become aware of my state of something like that." But her answer really blew me away. She looked at this person and said, "But how is it possible that anyone could point a gun at me? If they came towards me, they'd just see light. If they tried to lift their hand, their muscles would go weak." That much faith. It's not that I need to protect myself. It's not possible for danger to come to me. Now, this is a very elevated level of faith. And so, yes, this first thing, it's faith that can really protect us and keep us safe. And I'm sure you also have many stories, whether they're stories of your own personal life or others who've told you of their stories. But of course, to really have that level of faith, such a deep connection with God, then the basis for that is, of course, understanding and realizing myself, who I truly am, understanding and realizing my inner goodness, that I'm a soul, I'm a being of light, and my original nature is peace. My original nature is love. My original nature is truth. And when I realize this, these qualities become very strong in me. And so I then am able to gain spiritual strength and become the master of myself and my mind. And then make the connection with God. A mind that's filled with greed and anger and fear isn't able to connect with God. But a mind that is calm, a mind that is loving, a mind that is truthful, such a mind that is peaceful, such a mind is able to connect with God. And then, of course, in that awareness, when we are more the master of ourselves, we're then able to make choices about our thinking, our attitude, our words, and our actions. Because too often, especially when there's fear, we don't choose. Something just comes out, or we just do something, and then we have to regret it later. I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't said that. How many times have so many of us said that to ourselves? But if I'm the master, then I choose to do good. I choose to perform good actions, to show kindness, to show compassion, to fulfill my responsibilities honestly, to be honest, not to be deceitful, and to be selfless, not to act out of my own ego because of my own selfish needs, but to have humility so that I can truly act for the goodness and betterment of others. Because in uplifting others and helping others, I'm also uplifting and helping myself. At the moment in our teachings, every month we have some special points of teaching that come. And this month it's about giving and taking blessings. Or was that last month? But anyway, one of the months. And it's about, so when I'm able to do good, then blessings come from others. And someone who was the head of the organization up until, from the time the founder left in 1969 until she left, passed away in 2007, Daddy Prakashmani. In the last few years of her life, somebody asked her, Daddy, what is the internal spiritual effort that you're paying attention to? And she said, my effort is that whatever I say, whatever I do, only blessing should arise from the hearts of others. I thought that was so beautiful. Not just ordinary action, but elevated action in God's remembrance. And I've witnessed, it's actually a couple of times I've actually witnessed a soul leaving the body. It's a very sacred moment. And the last time was actually very recently, just about a month ago. And this person had really helped a lot of people and done a lot of good in his life. And when somebody has done a lot of good and their conscience is clear, the soul leaves very easily. And he left so quietly, so peacefully. And I've seen with our elder sisters when they left, just happened so easily, so quietly. My own father, the same. And it's because they'd done what they had to do in life with responsibility, with accuracy, with love, and their conscience was clear. A clear conscience indicates that I'm performing good, elevated actions. And this is my most powerful protection. The greatest protection is virtue. So in terms of developing safety, sometimes I've been asked the question, sometimes I get bad vibes from people, so how do I protect myself? I say, well, if you think I have to protect myself, there is a little bit of fear there. What's more important is not to think you have to protect yourself, but actually think that you have to generate that goodness inside and then spread it into the atmosphere. Because we have a saying that your attitude creates the atmosphere. And so where you're generating an atmosphere of goodness, an atmosphere of love, an atmosphere of respect, that atmosphere becomes like a force field and nothing negative can enter. Negativity enters and affects us when we have a chink somewhere in the armor, some weakness that we have. And we all have weaknesses. I always say that we're all a work in progress. There's always things that we have to learn and do and grow from, of course. But yes, if I'm giving out that goodness, this is the aura, this is the atmosphere that I'm carrying with me. And it's this aura of goodness that can really keep me safe. And when internally I'm experiencing my own inner goodness and I'm experiencing my connection with God, I feel safe. It is an actual feeling. It's not that you're telling yourself you're safe or trying to convince yourself that you're safe, but you actually feel a sense of safety. And then when you feel that sense of safety, others also feel safe around you and they come to you. It's a little bit like a tree that gives shade. People come and sit under the tree because they want shade from the sunlight or the rain or whatever. And so you become like the shady tree, giving shade to those who need. They come into an atmosphere of safety. And this kind of safety engenders trust. In fact, safety and trust go together. And I think we all know in life there are people that we just trust implicitly. Somehow we just know they're trustworthy and we always feel safe around them. Think about it, the two go together. And, this is before I was studying Raj Yoga. I was meditating. I must have been 18, 19. And it was in the year, in the summer holidays when I was at college. And I decided to offer to volunteer in a charity shop. So I went along in the morning and there was an older lady there. She said, yes. In fact, she was alone in the shop. So it was just the two of us. She was happy to have my help. And then at the end of the day, she says to me, I know I shouldn't do this, but I just trust you. I'm going to give you the day's takings to deposit in the bank. Now, she didn't know me. She didn't know where I lived or anything. So I could have gone off and had a holiday. But of course, I deposited it. But it was just interesting because anyway, I've always valued honesty a lot. And so then, even without knowing you, people trust you and feel safe. And that's very sweet. But think about the people that you really feel safe around and that you trust. And, one of the aspects of trust, when people keep their promises and when people walk their talk, then, yes, you feel you can trust them. So safety and trust, things that are so lacking in our world today, but which are so badly needed. We need to destroy. We need to restore trust, because then we can restore safety. You know, if you go back a generation, if two people made a business deal, they agreed and they shook hands, and that was it. Today, how many lawyers do you need to make a business deal? How thick is the contract covering every eventuality? We've completely lost trust. And so this is the task now, to restore trust in our world, trust in each other. But the foundation is emerging my inner goodness. It's a practice that I need to have. Let me emerge that inner goodness every day. And actually, of course, once it becomes natural, well, we shouldn't need to emerge it, but it's not natural yet, because there are so many influences that can take it away, that can again bury it, and we forget. That's why every morning it's so important to practice, to remember who it is that I am. One of our late administrative head, spiritual head, I should say, who left us just in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, Daddy Janki, we say Om Shanti as a greeting, and she would say, I say Om Shanti to myself 3 times every day. First, Om Shanti, who am I? Second, Om Shanti, who do I belong to? And the third Om Shanti, what is it that I have to do? And if I know who I am, I'm emerging my inner goodness. I'm aware I'm a soul. If I know who I belong to, I'm a child of God, and we all belong to one human family, then it's very natural that I know what it is that I have to do. That goodness and that connection will flow out into my actions, my words, my actions. And then I'll be doing that elevated karma, good karma, but elevated karma that will bring a good return, that will bring blessings. And that's also a form of protection. In the days of partition in Karachi, when there was a bloodbath going on around, those who were part of the community of the Brahma Kumaris, called the Om Mandali at that time, living in one, actually not one house, a few houses, 2 or 3, but one house had young women, about 60 young women, and of course, very much exposed to danger. But the government of the day considered that these were angels because of their spiritual presence, and they remained safe. In fact, they were protected by the government, and many things happened. They were sent vegetables and fruits and milk, and they were kept going. Why? They didn't ask for anything, but because of the goodness that they showed, they gained those blessings. Because whatever you do comes back to you like an echo. But not just that, whatever you think comes back to you like an echo as well. Your thinking isn't private. Our thoughts create feelings, our feelings create vibrations, and they go into the atmosphere, which is why it's so important to live with our inner goodness. So this is truly, the means of safety. So I was just checking when the meditation is. So this is truly the means of safety. So let me make that choice every day. In the morning, let me choose goodness. Let me make the connection so that the whole day will flow in the right way. And of course, you know, sometimes you may feel a little bit affected by something, but because you've built up your spiritual strength, you'll be able to recognize it quickly and turn it around. Without spiritual strength, something influences you or affects you, and you don't notice for a long time until it's built up, and then you feel overwhelmed by that emotion. And so the benefit of the spiritual practice is that you're able to recognize when something is triggering a weakness, making you a little irritated or whatever it is, or you feel a little insulted. Oh, no, hold on, this isn't the feeling I want to have. And then you put it right. And so then you maintain that goodness, you maintain the connection, and you maintain the aura, the blessings that give us safety. So actually, let me just leave it there and let me stop and see if there are any questions or comments that anybody has.
Sure.
And yeah, but actually, I would just one more thing I've just remembered. You know, in terms of that question, where is God in terms of war and what's happening? And I also remember the words of Daddy Janki, and she said, God would not give us power to fight one another. God would give us power for peace. True religion means peace. Thank you.
Right. So actually you have 15 minutes more, but we'll go into the question answers. No worries. That's fine. So we'll see how interactive it can be. Yeah. So this is related to something which people celebrate here in India. There is something called the Safety Week. Once a year or once in 6 months they have. And there are a lot of slogans which mention about safety while driving particularly.
Is this Road Safety Week or any safety?
Actually, it was, I think, a few weeks ago, the last month it was. So we were not able to get time slot there. Yeah, but you're right. The World Safety Week, you're right. So I was wanting to know that the slogans which are mentioned, speed thrills but kills, and it's mentioned that you don't need to know the whole alphabet of safety. The ABC of it will save you if you follow it. And what is the ABC? It's always be careful. That's the ABC which people really try to sort of proclaim during this week. So the question is, this is all safety for the body while driving. So what is it that I can do for my spiritual safety? Spiritual safety, maybe if you can elaborate for the next 10 minutes on that.
It's always also ABC, always be careful. What does it mean to be careful? To take care. And so one thing, and so the very first care is to take care of myself, right? And so, you know, whatever, if I want to be safe externally, I have to be safe internally. That's now very clear from what we've been saying. So first I have to take care of myself. And that means that I have to take care of my health and my relationships, because I think the most impact on us comes with our relationships. If relationships are good, everything feels good. If relationships are not so good, we get very disturbed inside. And so let me take care to keep my relationships good. Take care of myself in the sense of my health, my diet, whatever it is that I need. And I'm afraid I see too many people who just eat a lot of things that are not good for them. And then at the time, it might be fine, but years later, you see the impact on their health. Whether it's too much sugar, too much salt, too much oil. And I know I've been very careful on my diet for a long time. So one is taking care on that level, but we need discipline for that. Because yes, it's all very tempting, you know, to have the extra gulab jamun or whatever it is. But I need discipline. And that means to take care of myself. Without discipline, I won't take care of myself. Even a thing like keeping my room tidy and neat, keeping everything in its place. I'm taking care of myself. Because whatever is my external environment, it's actually reflecting my internal environment. And if I keep the environment externally in order, then absolutely, it actually saves me a lot of time. I need something, I go straight to it, and I put it back in its place, in the same place. And I find that very, very helpful. I'm speaking from experience. I find that very, very helpful. I want things to be in their place. So then I save my time, and I save my energy, and I save my thinking. Otherwise, you lose something and, you know, just wastes a lot of thought. And our thought is energy. If we waste our thoughts, we waste our energy, we waste our time. So let me take care of my environment, keep it clean, keep it nice. Let me take care of what goes inside of my body. Let me exercise. That's where I lack a little bit, is the exercise. But all of these aspects of taking care of the self, then that will enable me then to be strong enough to take care of others. And, you know, I just see that we're most happy when we're giving. We've done quite a bit of work with young offenders, and, you know, where there are projects in prisons, especially with youngsters, when you encourage the youngsters to care for something, a completely different side comes out. One of the women we were working with, they were teenagers, young men. They would have been above 16, but, you know, up until their 20s, early 20s. And some of them had become fathers. They weren't married, but, you know, the scenario. And she had a project with them to try to help them to care. Now, these are very sort of tough young men who are like, as hard as anything, or so you would think. There may be an external hard shell to anybody, but internally, there is a soft point you can touch. Anyway, she did an activity with them, and she brought them some eggs, fresh eggs, and they painted a little face on that. And she said, so this egg represents your baby. Now I want you to take care of this and wash it and dress it, and you mustn't break the egg because eggs are fragile, right? And she said, I was so amazed to see the care with which these very tough young men cared for these eggs. So to bring out the caring, it actually is, it gives such a good feeling inside and helps to transform our internal traits. And so, yes, being careful, but another thing I've learned the hard way, not to rush. And physically, I've learned it because I had a bad fracture. It's now 2 years ago. And since then, I won't rush. No, I won't take risks. If someone's running for the bus, I'll say, you can run, I'll get the next bus. Literally. So taking care physically, but also taking care not to rush in my mind. Because if I rush in my mind, I'll react. Rush means react. I'll say something, I'll regret it. And you know, that email comes in and you straight away bang off a reply. And then you say, oh, can I get it back? But it's gone. Don't rush, don't react. Then you'll keep yourself safe from a lot of trouble. And yes, always, well, we try to be always. We have to keep reminding ourselves. And this is where the practice of meditation is so important. It's a reminder. It really is a reminder of who we are and who we belong to. And so, yes, so important to take care of my own mind, because just as I was mentioning, taking care of your body, what you feed it, what am I feeding into my mind? You know, am I feeding violence? Am I feeding, you know, what am I feeding? And I feel it's a very difficult thing now these days because of social media. And people are so addicted to computer games, incredibly addicted, that they can't even eat or go to the loo. Or I've heard some horror stories. I actually heard a story, now this is very extreme, about a young boy who ruptured his bowel because he wouldn't go to the toilet, because he wouldn't leave the computer game. Can you imagine what's going on and the level of addiction? So there's so much bad influence. I must remind myself continuously who I really am, so that the influences are weakened and my inner self is stronger. I have to become stronger than all the influences around me. One is to be influenced, the other is to be an influencer. And it's only when I'm strong inside that I can then influence the atmosphere and others around me in a positive way, and also create an atmosphere of safety. So safety on all levels. So thank you for the question. It's physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. And another aspect here is that when we react, when there's a lot of fear, it actually causes a trauma inside. And trauma sits very deeply and then subconsciously guides our behavior. And there's a lot of research into this nowadays. And a very well-known expert on trauma, you may have heard of him, Dr. Gabor Mate. He actually was at our center last October. He says that trauma isn't so much what happens to you, but how you react to what happens to you. And I remember one person talking to me about her experience as a child. She said that, and there's a trauma she carries with her. She said when she was very young, 6 or 7, she got very ill. And of course, her parents were very concerned, took her to hospital. She was unconscious. Anyway, when she gained consciousness, she was alone in a dark room and she didn't know where she was. And she had so much terror, so much fear, that has stayed with her well into her adult life. Now, of course, the family, the doctors didn't want to do her harm. And nowadays, there's more awareness of the need to be with people when they come round. But this was like 50 years ago and wasn't the same understanding. So that trauma stays with us. And then it informs our behavior, causes causes fear where there's no need for fear. So it's so important that I take care of myself at all levels. And then if I am carrying trauma, yes, If it's very deep, then sometimes I may need that counseling help or some help to work through it. But I also know that more than anything, when we have that connection with God, it's God's love that is the greatest healing power. So let us absorb God's love to heal the pain inside, to heal the trauma inside, so that we can become whole again, we can become ourselves again, and we can really come back to our original state of being. Thank you.
Right, wonderful. So you spent exactly 10 minutes. That's great. So
I wasn't timing myself, but
so there's another interesting question in the chat box that I like to go to the Brahma Kumaris Center. It's, I think, in India. But I am very, not disturbed, but there are a lot of restrictions in the BK Center. And what restrictions? He's saying that there are curtains everywhere. You're not supposed to go in someone's room without prior permission, so on and so forth. And then it reminds me, because he's saying that in the teachings here at Brahma Kumaris, it is mentioned about, I'll say two Hindi words, Qaida and Faida. Qaida means if you follow the disciplines properly and the rules of the spiritual life, then you're safe. And it is basically for your benefit. So he's asking that I really am not able to digest that. How is it safe for me not to enter someone's room without permission? So he wants to get...
Well, I think it's interesting. I think this is a cultural thing as well. Maybe, I don't know, but certainly in a place like the UK, it would be considered manners that you don't enter someone's room without permission. It's just something you're brought up with, unless, of course, it's a family member or something. But normally you would seek that permission. It's just a question of manners and courtesy, really. Because you don't know if somebody's changing, if somebody's whatever they're doing, it's just to respect their privacy. And then it's benefit for you, because you learn a discipline. You learn, I'm not saying that the person doesn't have manners. Of course, manners depend on culture. That's what I understand. But you learn a discipline. You learn respect. You learn to be a little bit patient inside. In fact, there are many benefits of following that law. And maybe I need to be a little bit patient and to wait for a few minutes until the person is ready, or until the person's ready to see me. They may be on a phone call, or anything could be happening. And so it just really gives that little bit of respect. So it's not like a law, but it's more a question of courtesy and respect, really. So look at it in that way, and don't feel it's something oppressive, that you're not allowed to do something. You can do anything, but it's just respecting the space of another.
Sure, great. So at the same, I think the next question relates very closely to this, and it comes to trying to live by the value of familiarity. I mean, familiarity, otherwise, in this world of extroversion, everyone is taught to be extroverted. And here again, the next question is, at the BKs, we are taught that you should not be speaking a lot to the surrendered sisters and brothers, and amongst ourselves also. And don't be so overtly familiar with them, because if you be familiar, you're crossing the boundary, and then you're not in a safe zone. So what is this zone of safety in the BKs? That's what they're wanting to know.
Okay. So I think this is a safety of purity. So of course, we want to keep ourselves free from any attractions to each other, especially between male and female, because we want to keep our connection with God, our consciousness as pure as possible. We want to keep ourselves safe from any influence. But I always say that, it's important not to have fear in that, and for it to become something natural. And so, yes, there can be friendship, absolutely. But that friendship should not take away my dignity or the dignity of others. And that friendship should not be a friendship that then can become manipulative. And so again, it's a question of respecting each other in such a way that you understand the needs of each other, you respect each other, but you don't have expectations, because expectations always lead to some form of disappointment. And so this helps you to be more whole within yourself, to have your greater self-dignity and your greater self-respect.
Wonderful. So the next question is you said about a lot of fear and the faith and trust. So is there any difference between faith and trust, or they are same?
Well, it depends how you're using it and its semantics, but there is one way you can distinguish between the two, because I may say, yes, I have faith in God. I know God exists. I have faith. You can't tell me that there's no God. But then when I'm up against a challenge or a situation of danger, I go into fear. At that moment, I may have faith in God, but I'm not trusting God. So if there's trust, then I won't have fear. I will connect with God and know God will take care of me. Actually, I'll tell you a joke in this regard. There was a man, an atheist, and he was walking along a cliff edge, and suddenly there was a gust of wind and he was blown off the cliff. And there was one old tree that, was sticking out, and he grabbed onto that tree, hanging on for dear life. And then, of course, he thought of God, and he looks up, he says, "Is there anybody up there?" And a voice says, "Yes." And the man says, "Save me, save me. Do you have faith?" "Yes, yes, I have faith. I'll do anything." "Anything?" "Yes, I have faith." "If you have faith, then let go of the branch." And then the man says, "Is there anybody else up there?" But yes, our faith, but our faith, our trust is knowing that God is going to take care. That's the main thing. That's sure inside.
Wonderful example. Yeah, so we move into another zone now of, so this person is saying that I am fearless, but when someone says lies or speaks not the truth and manipulates me or says something which is false, I am very angry at him or her. So he's entering another zone of unsafe, being angry. Anger is we say in our workshops also, anger is a danger zone. It's not safe to be angry. So how do I take care of my anger? I'm not fearful, I'm fearless, but I am not able to take care of my anger. Any solutions for that?
Mm-hmm. So when, actually one thing is to remember that when somebody tells a lie or is dishonest, then it's not because they're bad, it's because they're weak. So they themselves are in a state of fear. That's why they're telling lies. They can't face up to the truth. And so have compassion for them. Give them strength. Help them. And if I become angry, this is the point at which I'm losing my dignity and I'm inviting the other person to manipulate me. In fact, you're doing exactly what the other person expects you to do. They expect you to get angry. It's like they're writing a script for you, and you say, "Yes, I will play your script. I will be your puppet, and I will get angry." There's no dignity in that. So if you remember that your most precious thing is your dignity, our human dignity. And so let anybody say whatever they like, but I don't want to give away my dignity. I do not want to give away my dignity. I do not want to give away my power. I do not want to give away my happiness. And so when I get angry, I'm just giving it away so freely. And then somebody else told me a saying, that when you get angry, all you're doing is showing to the world that you're a fool. So don't do that to yourself. Stay calm, stay dignified, and you'll gain the respect of others.
Right. So you spoke about having the consciousness of being an instrument. So usually many people ask this question, that this consciousness of being an instrument, nimit, we have heard it for the first time at Brahma Kumaris. So can you explain, they say, that what is this instrument consciousness?
It's really the opposite of ego consciousness. When we have instrument consciousness, we know that we're being an instrument for good, and the source of that goodness is coming from a source other than ourselves. It's coming from the divine, from the supreme. And then I can't claim success of my own. I'm an instrument, it's coming from God, and the result of that is up to God. So actually then I become free. Because if I'm doing something with my own ego, and I am doing it and I know best, then I'm so open to insult, to being brought down, to being manipulated. But if I have instrument consciousness, then I'm not going to allow myself to fall into that trap, but I will maintain my dignity. And I'm not going to be disappointed, because the result is up to the one who has used me as an instrument. So yes, an instrument needs to be fine-tuned. So if you have a violin and it's not tuned, no matter how good the player is, it won't be good music. But if it's fine-tuned, then there will be beautiful music. But it will be the one who's playing, who's creating the music. And the instrument cooperates by fine-tuning itself. So when we stay in our state of soul consciousness, awareness of being a soul, then God can use us as an instrument. But when we stay in body consciousness, awareness that I'm got this position, I have this profession, this is my wealth, all that body conscious identity of my role, then I'm cut off from being an instrument. So it actually is something that frees us very much.
Right. So speaking of soul consciousness, another question which is saying here is about the soul is eternal. It can't be injured. It's because it's metaphysical. It's an energy. So as Brahma Kumari practitioners, you all should never think of safety at all, because you're all eternal and you all practice so much of soul consciousness. So you all should be always very, very fearless. Why is there fear? Why do you want to speak about safety? Why did you take up this topic today? Are you not soul conscious or something like that?
That's a good question. Well, yes, I may be soul conscious, but I want to help you to be soul conscious as well. And of course, we weren't just born like that. It's been through a process. We had to learn it. We had to understand. Then we had to practice. And so if you've understood something, you've learned it, you've practiced it, you've seen the benefit in your life, you want to share it. And so this session is to help all of you.
Great. So I'll just take a few quotes, which are very interesting quotes, and maybe your comments on that. It would disappear just a moment. Yeah. So Benjamin Franklin has said that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So as you were saying about prevention and protection, it's always better than a pound of cure. And I would like one more, you can illustrate this more. It's a beautiful one, it's rhyming. Prepare and prevent, don't repair and repent. So I'm sure you got it. So you want to elaborate that, prepare and prevent rather than repair and repent.
Well, we covered it really in a way,
Okay,
because when you do say something or do something you regret, you repent, and then to repair the relationship can take years sometimes. And I know another one we used to see on the road up to Mount Abu, I think it's still there. in terms of road safety, reach in peace, not in pieces. So I like that one.
And on a similar line, it is saying that safety is 30% common sense, 80% compliance, and the rest is good luck. So, so if it's 30% safety, which is common sense, 80% is compliance. So I think it is complying to the rules, I think. So whatever we spoke about, the rules and
well, it depends on the context, of course, but I would leave a good percentage for faith and trust in there.
Trust is, I think that's good. Yeah, and we have a few more minutes left. So I would want you to share a few stories of the seniors whom you have spent a lot of, you shared a lot actually, I'm sure, but a few stories particularly related to Dadi Janki and Dadi Gulzar, who were the seniors who you had a lot of sustenance from, related to safety, something.
Well, I would see in Dadi Janki, because she used to get ill health quite often. And once that period of ill health was over, it was like it didn't exist for her. She wasn't scared that it's going to happen again, even if she was in great pain. And I remember she was once on a flight between India and Sri Lanka, and the sister traveling with her, she got breathless and she needed oxygen on the flight. So, the sister traveling said it was a bit scary. Anyway, after she reached Sri Lanka, of course, she had to come back. Now, if you have had an experience like that, you feel a little hesitant. If I go on a flight again, will it happen? She had no thought, didn't even think of it. And another example, there was one December when Dadi had a fall in India and she needed 25 stitches in her head. It was awful. And we really didn't know what was happening anyway. Then we got proper information. So we heard that she needed these stitches. And then a few days later, literally, I think 3 days later, there was a transmission from Mount Abu. And we saw Dadi there. And she had this sort of kerchief on, covering the bandage, I suppose. But she seemed okay. She seemed fine. That was December. I got to India in the February. So I asked Dadi about it. I said, Dadi, you had this big injury, but then, when I saw you a few days later on the screen, like you were normal. And she said to me, I put it out of my mind as if it never happened. So that's the power that the Daddies had internally, of not allowing their mind to go out of control and interfere. So yes, very fortunate to have witnessed how those souls lived, and very fearless in in her plans, in her vision, expanding the work of the BKs all over the world, 140 countries now. This was all Dadi's vision, and she took risks and she made things happen. So yes, very fearless, full of faith, full of trust, not reckless, fearless.
Yeah, actually our time is up, but one of the participants has sent me a message. She's just asking, I know it's a big topic, what she's asked, but see what just 1 or 2 minutes you can give an answer. See, safety from Maya, that's what she's saying, and Maya and all such things which are used in BK language. So what do you want to comment
well,
on
we've
that?
we've been again, we've been covering it actually. What you call Maya, you can say is illusion, or things that bring you down from your elevated state of consciousness. So we've been talking about that, being influenced and then reacting and so on. And so the whole thing is to be safe from doing that. And of course, we have these traits inside that have built up over time. If somebody is an angry person, it's like they have a trait of getting angry. And so, that can deceive us from the inside. And so that's why that practice of soul consciousness is so essential. And according to we use the term sanskaras, or our personality traits, so our external circumstance changes, which is really the principle we've been talking about. So if you have a person who continually gets angry, and their anger just gets out of control. They may lose their job, they lose their relationship, so many things. And so their external situation changes because of what's going on internally. So conversely, if I have goodness going on internally, and I have a state of, elevated consciousness, then how good my external situation will become.
Thank you so much for safely answering our questions. Thank you for your time. We had one of the maximum session here today, almost half an hour Q&A. So thanks. And I would now request Sister Anu to please propose the vote of thanks. Over to you.
Oh, you're muted. Yeah.
Thank you, Sister Maureen.
Thank you.
Yes, on behalf of everyone here, we really appreciate the essence and the attention that you brought to what is truly safety. We maybe take it very lightly and we think, okay, safe, I'm safe. But you gave all the perspectives, physically as well as in the mind. True safety comes from internally. That's what. And I really loved it, that also the greatest safety or protection is my virtues. So yeah, I have to be aligned, in tune with me being the soul, the truth, and as God's instrument, so that I can choose goodness every day. And that is where I'll have my greatest safety, and not being body conscious or role conscious. Such an essential message, and I'm sure we all will review again and again and bring that total safety in us. So thank you so much, Sister Maureen. We can't thank you enough.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you. And then right now, I'll also quickly go through the announcements before we go for our meditation with Sister Maureen. So there you go. As we always do, after 1 week, we'll have our workshop on safety, so we can further deepen the understanding and experience of safety. So there will be experiential exercises the first hour. Then we'll have Sister Shireen from Florida, USA. She would be first time speaking in our series, and she's amazing. Whoever knows her, spiritually, such a depth of experience she will bring out. So join us for an insightful talk and meditation with her. So that is 2nd of December, Saturday. And time has moved a bit early, so 6:15 a.m. for West Coast, US, Canada. Hopefully everybody will note that and join. And 7:45 p.m. for India. So please note. And we'll also have our silence retreat on safety, again in silence, to really deepen the experience of safety. That would be 2nd of December, Saturday, 7:30 p.m. for West Coast, US, Canada, which is Sunday, 3rd December morning, 9 a.m. And it is for, according to the, of course, Brahma Kumaris teachings and principles, but it is open for all. So you can join us to experience it. And the next session, the episode 79 for Values for Life series, is Reverence. In Hindi, it's Shraddha. So it is so many things: respect, regard, gratitude. So what is reverence? The spiritual significance we'll hear from Sister Denise. She will join from France. She is the Senior Raj Yoga teacher, and we have been listening to her a few times. So please join us on 9th of December, 6:45 p.m. West Coast, US, Canada. That would be, again, little bit time shift, 15 minutes earlier, and that is 8:15 p.m. India. And check us out on our websites. That's vihasa.in and vancouver.brahmakumaris.ca. And all the videos, including today's video, you'll find, and also in other languages on our YouTube channels. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Over to you, Brother Manoj.
Yeah, so I think if you wanted to take the photograph quickly, if you want to do that, if I could request all of you all to just please switch on your video cameras so that you can be pictured.
Yes, that's our memorable moment of the session. So everybody can also open your gallery to see the whole bouquet of.
Quite a few friends I can see.
For the photograph, they do open up their video cams. That's good.
They still have few seconds if anybody wants to open, haven't opened. Yeah, I got.
Thank you, all of you all. And we'll just do the closing meditation. So will it be a meditation commentary or drishti, whatever you suggest?
I'll do a little commentary. Yeah.
Fine, sure. Thanks.
I take a few moments to go inside, to experience true safety. It's hard to find safety externally in this world. But when I journey into my inner world, then I am safe. Safe from the many influences around me. I become comfortable inside. And I can let go of fear. And in my inner world, I can realize my true self. I'm a being of light. A being that is not physical, a spiritual being. And I have original goodness inside. When I touch that inner goodness, I feel safe. I feel comfortable because it is my original true state of being. And I now understand that everything else is artificial. My true identity is that I am a soul, a being of peace. And in this state of peace, with a thought, a pure thought, I can take my consciousness beyond this physical dimension. To a world of silence, which is completely safe. And in the silence, I connect with the being, the highest being, the supreme. the one who provides safety for the whole world. And I feel safe in that divine love of God. Because this is love. It has no expectations. This is love that frees me from all negativity. This is love that heals many fearful experiences of the past, so that those experiences no longer have an impact on me. In God's love, I've again become my whole, real, true self. And as an instrument, I share that love with the world. First in my attitude, in my words, in my actions, but also through my vibrations. I become an instrument to spread an atmosphere of love and goodness into our world that is in so much need of love, of goodness, of truth. Gradually, I return to this world, this consciousness and awareness of my body and my surroundings. And I keep that atmosphere with me wherever I go, with whoever I interact with, and in whatever I do. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister
Thank you so
Maureen.
much.
It was very nice. You cover everything what we need to hear today. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sister Maureen.